everyone. Thank you for coming to our session. As Brian said, my name's Jess Harvey. I lead diversity and inclusion at Justworks, and I'm here with Olivia Lefebvre, who's our senior product designer. And today we're going to talk to you about design thinking, so what that is, which is why I brought a real live designer with me, and how we use that to build our diversity and inclusion program at Justworks. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask you all a question, and I promise this is the only interactive part of the session. I know we're right after lunch. How many of you have seen a brand do something that wasn't really great, but instead of acknowledging it and kind of owning it, they tried to change the story? You can raise your hands. Yeah. And do you remember how you felt when you saw that happen? I know I kind of feel a bit yucky, just something feels a little bit off. And we had our own yucky moment, for want of a better word, at Justworks internally. And that kind of kicks off the story for our presentation today. So like most companies, we have a weekly all-hands meeting. And at one of these all-hands meetings last summer, our leadership team presented on diversity and inclusion stuff. We were presented with diversity data, which was fine. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't great. And we were presented with a number of initiatives that the company was committed to, but we hadn't yet kind of kicked off. And on its own, that wouldn't be cause for using this story in this presentation today, but immediately after we were presented with this commitment to diversity and inclusion, we introduced a new hiring class. And this hiring class was pretty big, and the majority of the hiring class were predominantly of one race and gender. So not very diverse. And the thing at Justworks is we don't just read out people's names. When new employees start, we bring them up the front, we line them up, we put their photos on a screen, and this contrasted with what we had just heard about our commitment to diversity and inclusion. Let's just say that our message and our actions just weren't aligned. And to be honest, for the rest of the summer, our hiring classes were actually pretty balanced when it came to diversity. It was just that this particular week, when we introduced this new class, we had also talked about how committed we were to making our company diverse. And so we referred to this moment, this all hands, as our yucky moment internally. It really felt off. We can laugh about it now, but at the time, it was weird. It didn't feel like our commitment as a company to diversity was real, and employees knew it and our leadership team knew it. So yeah, we basically call this our yucky moment, and it was a turning point for us in terms of diversity and inclusion as a company.
Cool. And so turning points are important because they make way for growth at an organizational, but also at an individual level. And so I believe that growth starts with some sort of confrontation or a yucky moment. So maybe someone calls out a bias you might have, or maybe you have a all hands that's not well received. And so this sort of launches you into this unknown space, and you might not be really sure what to do next. You might not even be really sure about what you even did to provoke this sort of yucky moment or this confrontation. But you kind of really have to make sure that you work through this and you kind of lean through this discomfort and you kind of have this moment of understanding, this aha moment. And I believe this understanding is what ultimately allows you to become a more inclusive individual and welcoming of identities outside of your own, which ultimately leads to healthy, diverse spaces. And it's important to note that this is not a one-time event that you go through and you're good. You're probably gonna go through it many, many times. And that's okay, because there's always gonna be an identity or an experience that's different from your own, and you're gonna have to learn about it, and you're gonna have to accept it. And so we believe that this is sort of the definition of growth and the recipe for progress.
And so we, as a company, kind of leaned into the discomfort of that all hands, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to give you some context about Justworks. Do any of you guys know Justworks? Yeah? See some Justworks employees. I'm glad you put your hand up. You may have seen our subway ads. This is an image from our recent campaign in Grand Central. Do we have any Justworks customers in the audience? Awesome. Don't tell me whether you like our product until after the presentation, but we can chat about that. Basically, for those of you who don't know us, we're a PEO, which is a professional employer organisation, and our mission, as our tagline says, is to help our customers work fearlessly. And we do that by providing payroll, access to benefits, HR and compliance support through really easy to use software that's beautifully designed by people like Olivia. I guess we're trying to make HR and payroll cool. I know for any HR people in the audience, you're all like, we know it's cool, we've known for years, but we're just trying to bring everyone else along. And one thing that we strive to do is be thought leaders for our customers and help them be the best employers that they can be in the way that we design our product and in the resources that we provide them with. And this is super important for the diversity and inclusion space as well. And we want to be thought leaders for our customers in this space, but we want to make sure that we're actually setting a really authentic example. And so this most of our customers, well, a lot of our customers are startups, and Justworks is a startup too. We're only about 5 years old. We have grown exponentially in the last year, though. We have about 300 employees and are hiring a bunch more. We just raised our Series D, like very exciting times at the company. But if any of you have been at a fast-growing startup, all that external growth is fast and it's exciting and it's electric, but like internally, sometimes it's a little bit slower and it takes a bit of time to catch up. And so this all hands for Justworks was really a time for us to just like slow down and kind of look inward and be like, okay, so we say that we care about diversity and inclusion, but obviously it's just not enough to say it and hope that something happens. We're going to have to try some stuff, and we're probably going to have to evolve our culture as well. And as most of you guys know, like culture change doesn't happen overnight. It's slow. And the thing for us at Justworks is that we were really proud of our culture, as Brian mentioned. Like we love our culture. We set some really strong values right at the beginning, led by our CEO, and the values are all like really great things. Our values are compassion, openness, grit, integrity, simplicity, like good things. And internally, we use the acronym COGIS and use it as kind of a gut check in how we build our products, in how we talk to our customers, in how we work with each other. But our challenge was, as we grew, was like, how do we scale and evolve our culture while still staying true to these values that we still really believed was part of our company. And so this all hands was a way for us to like step back and be like, okay, if we're evolving our culture, we want to make sure we're taking it to a place that embraces diversity and is super inclusive. So our leadership team took it as an opportunity to refresh, really, and they acted pretty quickly. They created a diversity and inclusion council, which was headed up by the CEO. They appointed me to run the program, and I'm someone outside of HR. They gave me a budget, and they gave me a mandate. It was a pretty loose mandate. It was, look, we don't think that anyone's doing this right yet, so just do something that's good for us. I mean, cool, like sounds easy, solve D&I for Justworks. It was obviously terrifying as an individual, but like very exciting for us as a company, right? Because we had this opportunity to make something better, and we basically had a blank slate. So where did we start? That's where design thinking comes in.
Cool. So how many people have heard of the phrase like design thinking, human-centered design, design intelligence? Okay, cool. A lot of people. Awesome. Cool. If you haven't heard about it, that's also great. So real quick, what is design thinking? So design thinking is a creative problem-solving approach that basically puts the people that you're designing for at the center of the problem-solving process. And it's a process that really asks you to put aside your own assumptions to learn about your users' unique needs and perspectives. So for HR, like your users would be the employees of your company. And so every company or designer has kind of like their own take on the process with a variety of different steps, but for simplicity, I've narrowed the steps down to 3 core ones. So learn, ideate, try. So first in this process, you want to really learn about your users, and you want to really learn about the problem that you're trying to address. And once you have all these findings and these insights, you sort of want to take that into your ideation process, and you want to generate a ton of ideas, like a bunch of ideas, good ideas, bad ideas, all of the ideas, get them out there, do your ideation. And then after that, you want to take a few ideas that you feel good about, and you actually want to try them. And you want to put these ideas out into the world, and you kind of want to see what's working, what's not working. You want to treat the ideas like little tests. And basically, you're going to continue to go through this process, take what you've learned from those little tests, and continue to go through the process and iterate continuously on your idea until you feel good about it. And so to bring this down to earth a little bit, I'm going to talk about how I use the design process at Justworks for product design. So a few months ago, my payments team and we were asked to improve time and attendance in our product. It was like a very vague, big, ambiguous request. It was sort of similar to the idea of like, can you just solve diversity and inclusion? So we needed to narrow the idea down. And so we started by first just learning about our customers. What did they think time and attendance meant? But then also looking for existing product pain points. So we learned that everyone has a totally different definition of time and attendance. Some people think clock in, clock out. Some people think project tracking. The list goes on forever. And we also learned that our existing time cards tool, it didn't scale well for large teams. And so we kind of took these core findings into our ideation. We did a ton of ideating. And we sort of came out with the decision that we're going to try to do an import hours tool. Cool, awesome. Once again, needed to go back to learn because I have never built one before. I've never designed one before. I had no idea how they worked. I've never used one before. But instead of freaking out, I was like, okay, I have this design process. I'm going to lean into that. So I went back and I learned how they work, what they do, what customers think about them. And then I went to ideation and I started to create wireframes. Took those wireframes, made prototypes, tried those prototypes out. And so basically we continued to go through this like learn, ideate, try process over and over and over until we felt really good about the problem that we were solving, but also pretty confident about our solution. And so the key takeaway here is that this is a messy process. You feel super clumsy going into it, but that's okay. The idea is that you really want to just try some stuff out. You want to put something out into the world, knowing that it's probably not perfect right away, and you want to keep going through the process and learn from that. And that's really the sentiment that we wanted to take into building out the diversity and inclusion program at Justworks. So how might we learn what employees wanted, and how might we like understand what they deeply cared about, but also how could we use this design process to build an authentic diversity and inclusion program at Justworks with our employees at the center of the problem-solving process.
Yeah, so we obviously, to follow Olivia's framework, we started by learning. And the first thing we did was we took the feedback that leadership team had already received from employees about what they wanted at the company. And then we talked to more employees, so I had a lot of coffees, a lot of one-on-one meetings. We also did a ton of outside research. I didn't mention this before, but Olivia is actually getting her master's in strategic design, and conveniently her capstone project focuses on diversity and inclusion. So she had like a lot of great ideas to bring to the table. She also had a lot of resources that we could access and draw from, which was super helpful. And basically what we learned from this first round of discovery was that the ultimate pain point for our employees right then at that time was that they didn't feel heard or acknowledged. Employees from underrepresented groups actually felt like they had no voice at all. On the bright side, we also learned that like a ton of people cared. So we had about 70 employees put up their hand and say, I want to be involved in making diversity and inclusion better at Justworks. And that was super energizing. And so we took those learnings and those pain points and we tried to create solutions that went a little way to solving them. And so the next step in the process is ideate. And so you can't really ideate without like a massive brainstorm, and we're a tech company, so like give us a blank wall and some colored post-it notes and like it's basically a party. Like we love brainstorms. So we got our creative director in to lead a few brainstorms, and the first few were like really big picture visionary questions. So we asked things like, if Justworks was going to be a leader in diversity and inclusion in 3 to 5 years, what does that look like? And then we got more specific and asked questions like, okay, what initiatives could we implement right now that would make your day-to-day better? And from these brainstorms, we generated a bunch of ideas. And basically, we had this momentum, and the only thing left to do was like try them. The other thing I should say about the brainstorming process is it already went a little way to solving some of our pain points because employees felt like they were bought in. They felt that they already had a voice in what we were creating. So one thing that we did try is this thing called Justreal, and I'm going to let Olivia tell you a little bit about that because she actually kicked it off.
Cool, yeah. So Justreal is an employee resource group that I helped launch with some people after Charlottesville happened. So after Charlottesville happened, no one at Justworks was really talking openly about it, and no one was really checking in with employees to see if they were okay after that event, and that just felt a little bit off to me. Because when something traumatic happens, it's not like you just like walk through the door at work and you just magically like leave everything behind, as much as we would definitely love for that to happen. And so it's emotionally taxing to separate your personal identity and experiences from your work identity and experiences. So we set up this small sort of experimental discussion group after work to have a Charlottesville check-in, and we did this for 2 reasons. So one, just to make sure that people were okay, but 2, also to sort of learn from one another's experiences and to understand what each other might be going through. And it got really intense. People talked about getting on the phone and immediately reaching out to loved ones to make sure they were okay. Some people were said, like, honestly, I'm not surprised by something like this. I kind of expected this to happen sooner or later. And some people talked about, you know, what it means to be Black in America. And the conversation got really intense and it got really real, but it was also very cleansing, and it was a really good conversation. And people afterwards asked for more sessions. And so we kept doing more sessions, and we kept doing this over and over. And we iterated on the format based on employee feedback. And now Justreal is this tightly organized monthly event that happens, and people get really excited about it. And basically it's designed to explore current events and relevant topics that impact employees inside and outside of work. But the best is that it's a safe way to help employees move through that sort of unknown space that I talked about earlier, which is exciting. And we've covered topics from like gender socialization to tone policing, climate change. The list really goes on, and it's been really, really exciting to see that grow and develop. And now Jess is going to talk a little bit more about some other programs.
Yeah, so to go back to that learn, ideate, try 3-step process, like we had tried Justreal, what did we learn? Well, we learned that we didn't even know that employees actually needed a space like this. Our leadership team also learned a bunch, so they come to the meetings, and I think hearing their own employees speak very openly and authentically about their experiences in the workforce, whether it be at Justworks or otherwise, kind of gave them the space to do some perspective shifting of their own, and that's super powerful. And so we've kind of used Justreal as the foundation for the rest of the programs that we've built out. So what have we tried? I should just like take a moment to say, like, we know that diversity and inclusion is like so huge. Like if we talked about or even thought about all the stuff we could be doing or should be doing, like it's very overwhelming. I think what worked for Justworks is that we identified pretty early on that we weren't trying to boil the ocean, and we were just identifying a very specific pain point that was there for our employees, and we were working incrementally to try and solve that specific pain point. So the initiatives that we've created have been all around like giving our employees a voice and giving them safe spaces to be able to talk about the issues that they weren't able to talk about before. And another thing that's worked really well for us, and we've been really lucky, is that we've had leadership buy-in from the very beginning. They show up to the meetings, they support us, they steer us. Most importantly, in the context of design thinking, they've given us the space to kind of experiment. And through things like Justreal, where they've been able to see the impact on employees for themselves, we've created like this relationship of trust. We've definitely won their trust, and now we can try a whole lot of other things that might not have gone down in the same way if we had done it before. So what have we tried and what has stuck? So we have 5 employee resource groups, whereas 6 months ago we had none. This is a photo of the BLA, our Black Employee Resource Group. We also have started doing employee panels. So this is a format that's worked really well for us. We've just got a lot of engagement and had a lot of great feedback. Basically, they're just like empathy building panels. We kicked this off with the BLA during Black History Month. They did a panel with some of their members about what it was like to be a Black person in a majority white workplace, specifically around imposter syndrome. And it was a really, really powerful event. And like managers came up to me after and said things like, wow, I did not know that my employees like felt like that, and I'm going to have to change the way that I manage my team. And that's like super powerful. So we used that format again and again because it's worked for us. During Women's History Month and for International Women's Day, we did a Q&A with 4 female employees at Justworks about navigating their careers. And we didn't talk about what it was like to be a woman. Our focus was really just profiling 4 exceptional women at our company that hadn't had the opportunity to share their story and kind of giving them the spotlight. We also have created a partnership program, and our partnership program helps us kind of strengthen our ties in the community, but also if we're partnering with the right organisations, which I think we are, helps diversify our recruiting pipeline as well. We've created a Unique Perspectives book club, and that's basically just a book club, but we read stories that are written by authors that are underrepresented in the literary world, or who are telling stories that we might not usually hear, or that go directly to the experiences of people that are underrepresented in our society. I mean, we also have like cheese and wine like any other book club, so that usually draws the crowd. And we have an employee newsletter. So this is written by employees for employees. It goes to everyone in the company, and it's about employees. So the main focus of this newsletter has been to profile people at the company, tell their stories in a way that hasn't been told at work, or you wouldn't usually hear from the person sitting next to you, or the person in the department on the other side of the office. Sometimes we profile customers as well. So maybe it's like a really badass female CEO, or a company that's like just launched an amazing social justice initiative, or that's doing wonderful things for the Black community. So this has been really good. And all of these initiatives are employee led and run. And like the coolest thing is, we can honestly say that the vibe has changed, and our culture is evolving. We've created these safe spaces where we can direct people to now if they're frustrated or they have concerns. We've started bridging gaps between departments because we're creating places where people who wouldn't usually work together get a chance to meet each other. We are highlighting and profiling the stories of employees from underrepresented groups in a way that's been really authentic and we think pretty powerful. And so like it's pretty exciting. We're not gonna lie. Another cool thing is that the stuff that we've been doing in D&I has kind of bled into the rest of the organisation in very subtle ways. But a small example is our customer support team used the empathy building panel format to do a Q&A for our product team, so that our product team could get a better understanding of how a day in the life of a customer success rep looks, but also so they could meet the people on the other end of their feature requests. We've been using the Justreal format to formalize a process with HR where we're having listening sessions to understand more about the employee experience, for example, like onboarding. Something that's a little bit more subtle, but I think still very important, is that a couple of weeks ago at an all hands, one of the members of our Black employee resource group asked a question at the all hands meeting about whether, as a business, we could start providing discounts to minority and women-owned businesses. And the cool thing about that is that it was totally normal. But a year ago, a question like that at a company all hands would have felt weird and probably wouldn't have been received in the way that it was. Even cooler is that we're actually following up on that proposal and now do offer discounts for minority and women-owned businesses, which is pretty awesome.
Just mentioned this earlier, but as thought leaders in the HR space, we really want to help our customers build diverse and inclusive organizations. So we just want to leave you with some takeaways from what we've discussed today. So 1, lean into discomfort. So don't shy away from your yucky moments. Sort of work through those and learn from those. 2, lean into clumsy. So embrace this idea of a messy process, iterate on your ideas. It's okay to have this sort of experimental design mindset when you're going through things. It's not going to be perfect right away, but that's totally okay. And 3, design thinking, it's about process, it's not about craft. And the main point of that process is involving the people that you're designing for. So include your employees, listen to your employees, learn from your employees, invite your employees to brainstorms. And why this is really important, so while it's really great that Justworks has done all these initiatives, just because we've done these things doesn't necessarily mean that they're the right things for you to do. And so we encourage you to sort of use this approach and like embrace this mindset so that you can build your own authentic programs and initiatives yourself.
And the other thing is, like, none of the stuff we're doing is groundbreaking, obviously, but it went to the heart of solving the pain point that our employees were experiencing at the time we kind of launched this. And so we would leave you on the note of, like, be scrappy and be real, because if you do, and I don't know if there are many startups in the audience, but like when you don't have a lot of resources, like you can actually make a huge impact just by being scrappy and being real, and get a little bit closer to making your organization more diverse and inclusive. That's it. Thank you.